Okay, guys, so let's talk about the scientific method, okay? The scientific method is a set of guidelines that scientists follow whenever they run an experiment. They follow these guidelines because they need to make sure that whatever their results are for their experiment, those results need to be valid. You know, they need to be accurate, and you have to be very precise and careful when you're doing experiments. Otherwise, if you're just sloppy with the whole thing, you're not going to have valid results. You're not going to have good results or accurate results, okay? So the scientific method, it's very simple, it's very quick. There are 5 parts that I set up for my scientific method. The first thing it's just the guidelines go like this. A scientist observes something, okay? They look at something and then they ask a question about whatever they observed. It's usually a phenomenon, okay? They're going to ask a question, all right? Then what they're going to do is they're going to write down their hypothesis, which is just an educated guess of what they think is going to happen, or their educated guess on why that phenomenon is occurring, okay? Then what they do is they run an experiment, okay? Now, this is this is the meat of the whole thing. This is what you really have to follow here as scientists, okay? When you set up your experiment, you have to get a group. Let's just say we're talking about people, okay? And I observed a classroom of students. You, hey. I observed you, a classroom of students, okay? My question was, I wonder if I took half of those students and gave them coffee, if those students would do better on a state test. Okay, so that's my question. My hypothesis is, yeah, I think so. I know that coffee makes you, more alert, more aware. So my hypothesis is going to be, I think the students with the coffee, that I give coffee to, are going to perform better on these tests. Let's set up the experiment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the classroom into 2 groups, okay? One group is going to be called the control group. The other group is going to be called the experimental group. The experimental group is the group that I give the coffee to, okay? I'm kind of experimenting on them, really. The control group, I put here in its natural state, are the group of individuals that are left normal. They're kind of left alone, but they're controlled. They're just off on their own, okay? You have what's called constants, okay? In this experiment, everything has to remain the same between the 2 groups. Everything has to remain constant between the 2 groups. Like, you both have to be taught by the same teacher. You both have to be in the same classroom. You're both sitting at the same type of desks. You're learning the same way. The temperature is the same in the room. The lighting is the same in the room. All these things are constant. The one thing that's different between the 2 groups is what's called the independent variable. It's the one thing that's independent in this whole experiment. And what is that? It's coffee. Coffee is the one thing that's different between these 2 groups. So that's called the independent variable. The dependent variable is what you're testing. In this experiment, I was testing to see the effects of student performance on state tests, okay? That is my dependent variable, okay? So your dependent variable is what you're testing. So I would run the experiment with the 2 groups, the control group and the experimental group. I would add my one independent variable to that experimental group, which is coffee, and I would let the experiment run, okay? The other control group, I'm leaving alone. I'm not giving them any coffee, okay? At the end, what you do is you analyze your data. I start collecting information throughout the week or whatever to see how you're doing on your tests. And then after I look at that data, that's what analyze means. I analyze it. I make a conclusion based on my information that I found in the data. Let's just say my information was, yes, in fact, I found that students did better on tests when they took coffee, when they drank coffee. That would be my conclusion. It's very simple. So now let's do some experiments, and let's set up our experiments using the same scientific method.